Welcome to the November Ordinary Council meeting, Wednesday the 18th of November 2020. Audio recordings of meetings, consistent with section 747A of the Local Government Act 1993 and current public health order. This meeting of Liverpool Shire Council is being live streamed to the Council's website. A webcast of this meeting will be published to Council's website at lpsc.newsouthwales.gov.au so that it is available for viewing by members of the public. I now ask Councillor Cudmore to recite the acknowledgement of country in the Council.
Acknowledgement of country. Today we gather on the land of the Kilmilroy Nation. We therefore need to acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of this land. We also pay our respects to the Aboriginal elders, both past and present, and further extend that respect to other adults who have joined us today. Council prayer. Lord, we ask that you watch over this council, guide us in our deliberations and decisions for the betterment of all the people of our Shire and Australia. Amen.
Item 2, apologies or applications for leave of absence by councillors. If not, I'll go to recommendation 3.1 of the council meeting held on the 28th of October 2020. The recommendation reads that the minutes of the council meeting held on the 28th of October 2020 be received and the recommendations therein adopted. Do I have a mover?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Moved Councillor Mould, seconded Councillor Black. Do you wish to speak to it, Councillor Mould?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You wish to speak to it, Councillor Black?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item 4, disclosures of interests. 4.1. Are there any disclosures of interest? No disclosures of interest. I'll go to item 5.1, the mayoral minute, mayoral activities for October 2020. The recommendation that council receive and note the mayoral minute. I move as mayor. Do I have a seconder?
Second.
Councillor Black. Did you wish to speak to it, Councillor Black?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item 6.1, correspondence and petitions. The recommendation is that council receive and note the correspondence 1 to 3. I have a mover for that. Councillor Lobbsy, seconder. Councillor Black. Do you wish to speak to it, Councillor Lobbsy?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Black.
Mainly just to perhaps note for our public that are here today what those 3 were, Mr. Mayor. Just to read out what those 3 were.
On the recommendations, Councillor Black.
Your correspondence, perhaps I'll read it out.
Yeah, if you would, yes.
Yeah. There's a letter from Blacktown City Council Mayor Mr. Tony Bleasdale, which was a congratulatory letter to the Mayor, Hawkins, OAN. The second letter was from the National Member for the Upper Hunter, Mr. Michael Johnson MP, which was a congratulatory letter to Mayor Hawkins, OAN. And the third one was a letter from the National Member for the Upper Hunter, Mr. Michael Johnson MP, congratulating letter to the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Cudmore. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Black. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? I'll declare it carried. Item 7, reports to council. 7.1, executive area report, area works. The recommendation is that council receive and note the executive area works report. We'll have a mover for that. Councillor Black. Seconded Councillor Cudmore. Did you wish to speak to it, Councillor Black?
Yeah, just to say it's pleasing to see all of the work that's going on in terms of human resources and the work health and safety areas within council. It's really pleasing.
Thank you. Councillor Cudmore, did you wish to speak?
No,
If not, I'll put the motion. Sorry, Councillor Miles.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just on page 21, the second item, the Namoi Unlimited Board meeting in Tamworth, we don't seem to be getting very much information from that. Is there anything that came out of that meeting that we as a council need to know about? Thank you, Mr Mayor. The J.R.
There's been a major piece of work that's taken priority over the last probably month and a half, but I'll have a copy of that final product for council's consideration and view, I think, next month, hopefully.
Thank you, GM.
If there's no other speakers, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item 7.2, amendment to the schedule of ordinary meetings 2020. The recommendation is that council amend the schedule of ordinary meetings contained at Annexure A to include an additional ordinary meeting on the 27th of November 2020 for the purposes of considering the auditor's reports and audited financial statements for the financial year ending 30th of June 2020. Note that the General Manager will provide public notice of the additional ordinary meetings and its purpose pursuant to Section 9 and 418-3 of the Local Government Act 1993 and Clause 3.3 of the Code of Meeting Practice. Do I have a mover? Move Councillor Cudmore. Seconder? Councillor Lobsey. Did you wish to speak to it, Councillor Cudmore?
no, again, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Lobsey? No. If not, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item 7.3, investments for October 2020. The recommendation is that council receive and note the investments October 2020 report. I have a mover for that.
Happy to move, Mr Mayor.
Move Councillor Miles. Seconder.
Second.
Councillor Black. Did you wish to speak to it, Councillor Miles?
No, thank you, Mr Mayor. It's quite clear.
Councillor Black.
No, thank you, Mr Mayor. Our discussions this morning made things very clear. Thank you.
I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item 7.4, budget review for the quarter ending 30th of September 2020. Is that me, is it? I'm
Sorry, my apologies.
The time now.
If I don't correct.
That's not what I was doing, apologies.
I'll start that again. Item 7.4, budget review for the quarter ending 30th of September 2020. The recommendation reads that council receive and note this report, adopt the revised budget forecast and actual year-to-date results as provided. I have a mover for that. Move Councillor Miles, a seconder. Councillor Cudmore. Those in favour?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry, did you want to speak to it, Councillor Miles?
Mr Mayor, just to thank our financial officer for answering the questions that were submitted. Some of them were a bit complicated, a bit in depth, and some of it was a little bit hard to understand, but I just thank our financial officer for his over for his responses. So thanks, Mr Mayor.
Did you wish to speak to it, Councillor Cudmore?
No, again.
I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item 7.5, Engineering Directorate Report, November 2020. The recommendation reads that council receive and note the Engineering Directorate Report, November 2020. I have a mover for that. Councillor Lobsey, a seconder. Councillor Webster. Did you wish to speak to it, Councillor Lobsey?
Only to say that it's a very in-depth report and well done, thank you.
Councillor Webster.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Just a Just a comment, I just noticed in the minutes, we sold that block of land, or a gravel pit. And my understanding was it was 45,000. In the minutes it's 25. I just wondered, did we get it cheaper or is it just a misprint? Thank you.
I'll have to refer that to the general manager.
Thanks, councillor Webster, we'll take that question on notice.
Anyone else wish to ask questions on that? If not, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item 7.6, Liverpool Plain Shire Council Local Traffic Committee meeting, September 2020. The recommendation is that council approve the following regulatory line marking works: barrier and edge line marking on final 3.6 kilometres section of the Merrywell Road, MR 358, adjoining the Upper Hunter Shire boundary. Barrier, edge line and channellised right-hand turn bay line marking on the recently reconstructed 700 metre section of the Merrywell Road, MR 358, at the Willow Tree Gravels Quarry T intersection. And barrier and edge line marking on the entrance to the quarry. Barrier, edge line marking and channellised right-hand turn bay line marking on the recently reconstructed section of the Werris Creek Road, MR 130, 320 metres south of South Street in Werris Creek. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Black, seconder. Councillor Cudmore, did you wish to speak to it, Councillor Black?
No, thank you, Mr. Lynn.
Councillor Cudmore?
No, again.
If not, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. No stuff. 7.7, Project Progress Report, Corindi Racecourse Irrigation Bore Upgrade. The recommendation reads that council receive and note Corindi Racecourse Irrigation Bore Upgrade Project Progress Report. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Cudmore, seconder. Councillor Black, did you wish to speak to it, Councillor Cudmore?
No, just to say I'm very pleased to see it moving ahead.
I thought you would, Black. Councillor Black, did you wish to speak to it?
Ditto that, it's very pleasing to see this actually getting off the ground. It's brilliant.
I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item 7.8, water supply status. The recommendation reads that council receive and note the water supply status report. I have a mover for that. Councillor Black, seconder. Councillor Cudmore, did you wish to speak to it, Councillor Black?
As was discussed this morning, that the village supplies, and in particular Wallaby has recorded a really great improvement in both its wells and its water sources for the very first time in many, many months. So that's really great to hear.
Thank you, Councillor Black. Councillor Cudmore, did you wish to speak to it?
Just a query through the chair, just what's the low chlorine level do? What, is that just the quality of the water, just doesn't have enough water?
So through the general managers, residual chlorine at the end of the pipeline is a barrier for bacteria basically, so I need to make sure that there's enough residual chlorine at the furthest point that the water will come out of our system to make sure that there's no bacteria in the water.
So low level means it's not good.
So obviously health guidelines are very conservative, so whilst we may have had a low level, the fact that there's still some there means it hasn't been consumed, so it's unlikely that there was any bacterial infection or anything like that.
Thank you.
I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item 7.9, the Upper Nemoy Groundwater Zone 1 Temporary Transfer Trading Scheme. The recommendation is that council agrees to participate in a temporary transfer scheme for 2020-2021 within the Upper Nemoy Groundwater Management Zone 1 system and review the outcomes before proceeding for subsequent years. Council adopts the updated annual temporary transfer scheme guidelines, Appendix A. Council approve a transfer of up to 250 megalitres at $125 per megalitre for the 2020-2021, as determined by clause 5 and 13 of the annual temporary transfer scheme guidelines. Council nominates one elected member to be a representative on the UNGWMZ1 Temporary Transfer Committee in accordance with clause 1 of the annual temporary transfer scheme guidelines. Do I have a mover for that?
So moved.
Councillor Mould, seconded Councillor Black. Did you wish to speak to it, Councillor Mould?
Mr Mayor, just to say that this, as discussed this morning, this has taken some time to get through the right departments to get as far as we have, so I'm very pleased to see this. And it's probably coming in at the right time, leading into the dry part of the year. I just draw your attention, Mr Mayor, to part 4 of that, where council nominates one elected member, so that needs to be done, but I'm happy whoever that member is elected. So thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Miles. Councillor Black?
Just a comment, it might be good for our public that are here today to understand what this is about, perhaps a bit of an overview for our public.
Okay, before I go on with that, Councillor Black, I'd just like to call for a nominee to go on that committee. Is there any councillor who wishes to go on that committee?
No, I'd like to nominate.
Councillor Cadmore's nominated. Anyone else?
Councillor Black nominated, Mr Mayor.
So we'll need a division on that. Need a vote. You want to do that by ballot or ballot or show of hands?
Show of hands.
Show of hands. So I'll put the question. The nominee, Councillor Cadmore. Those in favour of Councillor Cadmore? Those in favour of Councillor Black?
That was a bit silly, Councillor Black.
Well,
I was trying to support you.
no one had put their hand up,
What was the
and I really respect the fact that Councillor Cutler is a farmer, and it might be appropriate that he is on that committee rather than me.
So I'll put my hand up for Councillor Cadman.
Are we happy for Councillor Cudmore to go on that or do
Yes.
another vote?
No.
Okay, well, I'll declare Councillor Cudmore the delegate.
Thank you, Virginia.
That was odd.
So just to explain this very complicated process really is that council's now in a position to be able to reallocate some of the water that's been allocated to it. The timing of this is imperative to assist farmers with their crops, so that's why it's come back to council now. This is something that's relatively new. Have a look at how it works with the process that's been outlined in this report. But it's been a learning process in terms of being able to get permission from the state government to be able to do this. So hopefully it will be successful and we'll be able to execute the sale of the water as quickly as possible to make sure that it's useful. There's no point putting water on the market during what I would call the rainy season, but it seems to rain every time here, all year through, so at the moment. But we're hoping that it will be successful and it will support the farmers who are in Zone 1.
Councillor Miles?
Mr Mayor, could I just add something to that for a little bit of clarity for our public? But we're talking about the Zone 1 water, so we're not talking about taking out the dam or other parts of the Shire. It's Zone 1 water for the farming community out there, and it was put in place for last December, January, when the drought was on. It's taken this long to get it onto the table, so it's water that still remains with the Shire. We're not giving it away as such, we're just trading it this time, and we retain it at all times. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Miles. Item 7.10, tender for the supply and delivery of ready-mix concrete. The recommendation reads that council approve tenders received from Boral Resources New South Wales Proprietary Limited and BJB Concrete Proprietary Limited, ready-mix for tender number REG PRO 222021 for the supply and delivery of ready-mix concrete for the period 1st of December 2020 to the 30th of June 2022. I thought we did.
Well done,
No, we moved it and seconded it.
Did we
Oh, we didn't do
Moved it
that.
and seconded it, you didn't vote.
Sorry. So you want to go back to that now? We'll just back to it now.
Back to it now, read out the recommendations
Okay, my apologies there, I didn't have the final vote on that. The recommendation that council agrees to participate in a temporary transfer scheme for 2020-2021 within the Upper Nemai Groundwater Management Zone 1 system and review the outcomes before proceeding for subsequent years. Council adopts the updated annual temporary transfer scheme guidelines, Appendix A. Council approve and transfer up to 250 megalitres at $125 per megalitre for 2020-2021, as determined by Clause 5 and 13 of the annual temporary transfer scheme guidelines. Council nominates one elected member to each. So that councillor has been Councillor Cudmore, that's been moved and seconded.
That was moved by me.
Those in favour? Those against? Carried. I'll go back now to 7.1, tender for the supply and delivery of ready-mix concrete. The recommendation is that council approve tenders received from Boral Resources New South Wales Proprietary Limited and BJB Concrete Proprietary Limited, ready-mix for tender number REG PRO 222021 for the supply and delivery of ready-mix concrete for the period 1st of December 2020 to the 30th of June 2022. That provision be allowed for a 12-month extension to tender number REG PRO 222021. Do I have a mover for that?
Move.
Councillor Black, second. Councillor Rossi, did you wish to speak to it, Councillor Black?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Rossi?
It's very self-explanatory, it's explanatory, no, thank you.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item 7.11, the Environment and Economic Development Directorate Report, November 2020. The recommendation reads that council receive and note the Environmental and Economic Development Services Works Report, October 2020. Do I have a mover for that?
Move.
Councillor Black, a seconder. Councillor Cudmore, did you wish to speak to it, Councillor Black?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Cudmore?
No, thank you.
If not, I'll put the motion. Sorry. For or against, Councillor Miles?
A bit of clarity on the question on the papers on a section, the Quindai housekeeping amendment. Mr. Mayor, I just read in here in regards to the heritage housekeeping amendment that's to go to the DPIE. I'm just wondering if the people that have actually either put in objections or have concerns about this heritage classification that's going to DPIE, whether they are going to get an opportunity to see this before it goes to the Department of Planning infrastructure and environment, because there has been a fair bit of feedback from the group in regards to Henry Street and Single Street. And I know the staff have worked very, very hard to get this all together, to put this housekeeping amendment in, but those people are going to want answers. So is it going to go on display that they can actually see it before it goes to DPIE? Thank you.
I'll have to take that, I'll refer it to the GM.
It's on page 67, that's all.
Thanks, councillor Miles, I'll hand that to you.
Thanks, General Manager. So the Heritage Housekeeping amendments following on from the community-based heritage study that we completed. Ordinarily, we wouldn't consult the landholders before we submit it to the Department of Planning. Normally, it would happen after we receive like the general terms of approval from the Department of Planning.
We'll have to take that on notice, Councillor Miles.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It just seems back to front that it's going to a state body and then that's right.
Is there any other speakers for or against the motion? If not, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item 7.12, the proposed development application, demolition of 2 existing pavilion buildings and construction of a pavilion, 101 East Street, Corindi, New South Wales 2343, Corindi Racecourse Showground. The recommendation is that Council resolve to allow the Planning and Economic Development Committee to determine the proposed DA following the conclusion of all the required processes associated with the assessment of the DA and subject to the committee's adopted terms of reference. Council officers circulate a copy of the assessment report to Council prior to the Planning and Economic Development Committee meeting. Do I have a mover? Councillor Cudmore, seconder. Councillor Logsy, did you wish to speak to it, Councillor Cudmore?
No, yeah, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Logsy? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item 7.13, DA 1/220, extended hours of operation for Crawford Freight Lines. Recommendation that Council determines the development application DA 1/2020 pursuant to section 416 of the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act 1979 by the granting of consent subject to conditions as detailed in Schedule 1, Conditions of Development Consent DA 1/2020 of Schedule 2 New South Wales Environment Protection Authority's General Terms of Approval. Do I have a mover?
I'll move that, Mr. Mayor.
Move Councillor Miles, a seconder. Councillor Webster, did you wish to speak to it, Councillor Miles?
Mr. Mayor, I believe I should. Mr. Mayor, as we've had an extensive discussion on this matter, I believe the DA that's in front of us is what we're dealing with today. I have read the 33 complaints that have been received, as all other councillors have. And I know that they're from January to March. The DA that's in front of us is very comprehensive. I think the biggest problem we have is what our role as local government is, and our role is this DA, and the governing bodies, the EPA and the ARTC, and then the other body, they are the ones that deal with the compliance to make sure he complies with what we've put in place. I know it's an angst at the creek, and I very much feel for the gentleman that spoke this morning, and I understand exactly where Mr. Marvel's coming from as well, but this is the DA in front of us, and it's very comprehensive, and I'm not really worried about the first paragraph about whether it was legal action or whatever. I'm dealing with this DA as I would any other DA that comes to this council, and that's why I'm moving the recommendation. Thank you.
Did you wish to speak to Councillor Webster?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. A couple of questions to management and maybe to the planning. Just the executive summary, which is page 2 of.
Councillor Webster, we can't take questions on it. We're moving consecutive motion as yet. For or against the motion?
Sorry?
Are you speaking?
Are you,
So we're not allowed to ask questions.
Councillor Webster, are you speaking for or against the motion?
I'll be speaking against the motion. Right, so we're not allowed to ask for clarification on any of this report. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not saying that at all.
Technically, Mr Mayor, we can't discuss it because we don't have a seconder and I've already spoken to it. I thought we had a seconder, Mr Mayor.
Yeah, it was me.
You're against the motion.
But I'm still allowed to, I'm sure still allowed to ask a question, are
Well, I guess you would be allowed to ask the questions, but you just seconded the motion. And now you're saying you want to speak against the
I? Well, it's
motion.
the only way we can actually get the things discussed is by moving it and seconding it. You don't have to actually be in favour of it.
Councillor Webster, could you tell us your questions?
Thank you very much, General Manager. My question is, it says the activities, the hours of operation, it's point 2 in the executive summary on page 3. It says activities permitted outside the dock point, first dock point, receival and unloading of grain and refrigerated container products only. Is that right? When you go to Schedule 2 of the Environment, New South Wales Environment Protection Authority's general terms, and it says log and grain receivals between the hours of 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. Monday to Friday.
Thanks, General Manager, Councillor Webster, that was a good pickup. Mentioned in a later section in that report is that condition with the EPA general terms of approval will be modified as well. So they're going to change it to match our condition 13.
So are we voting on this today, even though there's going to be some changes come through?
So my understanding from what the senior planner says was that the EPA are going to modify their conditions to meet the conditions that councillors have requested, which has been put forward for council decision today. So the overriding conditions will be those that council approve.
Today.
Is there any speakers for the motion? Councillor Black.
I too totally understand the concerns of the public that spoke in regards to this morning, and also in regards to the 30 odd applicants that put in their concerns. When I go through all of this documentation, and there are pages and pages and pages and pages of it, and the reply that has been given to all of those concerns, and I look at the report from council in terms of the legalities of us approving or not approving a DA, there is no way that I can say that I cannot approve this DA, because it is met on this document that's in front of us, it has met all the requirements of this particular DA. And I think a lot of discussion has been had outside of these chambers, which is not to do with this DA, but to do with the original DA that was put in for Crawford's. And that is something that we are not dealing with at this point in time. We are dealing with this particular DA that is in front of us. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Black. Is there any other speakers against?
Not against it. Can I put my two dots in? Yeah, I'm a bit like Virginia, Councillor Black, with the proponent. I think the first DA, we haven't sort of ticked all the boxes in that regard. I believe that's the EPA as much as council, probably the EPA or whoever is that body that's control of that dust issues, and water, runoff. There's a few other issues there. The proponent probably hasn't fulfilled his agreement in the first DA, but this is, as Councillor Black has said, that we're discussing this DA. So if we were to pass this DA, as long as we can revisit the first one to make sure that the proponent fulfills his obligation. There's a few different scenarios that have turned up since then, which is the redevelopment of that whole precinct with government money, and that all can't happen straight away, and everyone's aware of that. I think the development per se for Werrich Creek is probably, in the long term, is going to be quite good, or very good, hopefully, that's the plan. So I think we've got to look at the big picture, as long as the proponent is made in some way or another by some government body, even if it's not council, that he actually looks after dust, water, and a few other things which I think are major costs probably to the proponent at the moment. But as Councillor Black said, this DA seems to tick every box that's put in front of us. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Cudmore. Division. Any more speakers for or against? Councillor Moore.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just really a right of reply. One of the things that hasn't been mentioned, of course, is the methyl bromide. And it needs to be very clear that it's not under our control, it's under the EPA's control. One of the other major issues, of course, is the rail corridor, which I brought up this morning. Again, it's not under our control, the working conditions within that railway corridor, and there does seem to be some discourse about who is to manage that. They seem to think we are the police on all things to do with DAs, and it's not the case. And I would really like to see, if this is passed, I would really like to see either community expressions that telling the community what's happening and explaining what we can and what we can't do, because there seems to be a misconception out there that we can just go and stop him from working in the corridor, and he's working in a rail corridor. That is a 24/7 working railway area. So there are a couple of major issues there, we're all aware of them. It is not something this council can manage. We don't manage it, it's a state affair. It's the EPA and ARTC and other government bodies. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any other speakers for or against? If not, I'll put the motion, if you would. Sorry,
Mr. Mayor, have we got it mover and second? Because Councillor Webster seconded it. So that's fine.
So, I'll ask for a show of hands. Those in favour of the recommendation?
Thank you. So can you say your name and views for or against? Who's for?
Councillor Cudmore,
Thank you.
for.
So who's else was for?
Councillor Black.
Councillor Moores moved it for.
Thank you. That's correct for. So what's the for? Thank you.
Councillor Webster against.
Thank you.
Councillor Hawkins for.
Thank you.
I declare the motion carried. Item 7.1. Item 7.14, the local advisory groups. The recommendation is Director of Environmental and Economic Development Services report be received and noted. Further information workshop to be held in relation to the local advisory groups. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Black, seconded Councillor Cudmore. Did you wish to speak to it, Councillor Black?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Only just to say that whilst we're going to move this, that I would hope that no changes will occur until the next new council comes in to play. Thank you.
Councillor Cudmore? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item 7.15, the Recreation Strategy Implementation Progress Report. The recommendation reads that Council receive and note the Director of Environmental and Economic Development Services report. Do I have a mover? Councillor Cudmore, seconder. Councillor Black, did you wish to speak to it, Councillor Cudmore?
No, thank you.
Councillor Black?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to say, it's good to see the progress that's being made. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item 8, Delegates Reports. 8.1, Delegates Report, Country Mayor's Meeting, November 2020. That Council receive and note the Delegates Report. Do I have a mover for that?
Move.
Councillor Logsy, seconded Councillor Black. Did you wish to speak to it, Councillor Logsy?
Unless you wish to tell us something about it. You tell us all about this morning.
Yeah, well, I think there's a comprehensive report there. So,
Yes.
Councillor Black?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item 9, notices of motion, questions with notice. 9.1, response to questions with notice, New South Wales Government Local Drought Stimulus Package Funding Allocation. The recommendation reads that Council receive and note the response to the question regarding the allocation of New South Wales Government Local Drought Stimulus Package funding put by Councillor Rob Webster at the ordinary meeting held on the 27th of October 2020. Do I have a mover? Councillor Cudmore, seconder. Councillor Black, did you wish to speak to it, Councillor Cudmore? Councillor Black?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item 9.2, response to questions with notice, determination of development applications for council projects and works on council-owned or managed land. The recommendation reads that Council receive and note the response to the question regarding the determination of development application for council projects and works on council-owned and managed land put by Councillor Rob Webster at the ordinary meeting held on the 27th of October 2020. Do I have a mover?
Councillor Webster.
Councillor Webster, seconder. Councillor Cudmore. Did you wish to speak to it, Councillor Webster?
No, thanks.
Councillor Cudmore.
No, thank you, sir.
I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Carried.